Alright, hell yeah, we're going to do a little voiceover. So what we're doing is we're going to do some draw strokes. It's always good to practice. Now, I'm on my strong side, and that's good to know because we do a lot of switching it up. And now, I'm using two different paddles, so that's the kind of the standard, and this is the Warner. This is a fiberglass paddle. And I never thought I liked it. You know, it's definitely light, powerful, but it's just hard to get used to. So now we're making a video on like, hey, well, let's see if we can notice the difference. Like that thing is just throwing a brick into the water. It's nice and heavy, but the aerodynamic drag is just huge. You know what I mean? So it's stable. Like that is the one thing about this paddle, especially for R1 rafting. You know, this is just see how it's just a little bit slicey. So it's harder to actually find your pry. And I would say that was just a little bit weaker. But when forward paddle strokes, look at this. That Warner paddle is just so much faster. And that's what I noticed. So I've been taking it to the wave to surf the wave just because it's so much easier to paddle into features with that Warner paddle. Now this, see how you just like drop it in? And it's like dropping an anchor into the water. Now it's significantly heavier. If you use these, now this isn't the standard Carlisle paddle, this is kind of the outfitter. It's got a little bit more aluminum. It's definitely a little heavier. And they're not cheap no more. This thing is like 50 bucks. So, you know, no paddle is cheap. But hell yeah. So this is, I'm still on my strong side. I'll tell you when I go to my off side. But hell yeah. So that's always a good technique of paddling backwards. You have to pry the front of the boat first and then paddle backwards. I've made videos on that. We don't do that again, so I can't really tell you about that. But this is the draw stroke. It's the harder stroke to do. So you draw and then turn. So you go for a draw and then pry, and then you get the boat going that way. So hell yeah, that's the Warner paddle. A lot of momentum. So now here's the other paddle. Hell yeah, I just call this like a fast turn, just because you're kind of paddling in the direction you want to go, and then it's kind of easy to rudder the boat after you go about 90 degrees. Okay, so now a little comparison. So see how it's faster, or it just bites more. There's so much more power that it actually gets the boat up onto end, but I'm just not used to that yet. Where this is just a consistent feel with the Carlisle paddle. Okay, now I'm on my offside, so this is cool, you know what I mean? And so hell yeah, just kind of the difference between the two. And I've been using the Warner paddle enough. We'll see how those strokes were just kind of nice and smooth. I mean, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is like if you do get into R1 rafting, I don't know, if you're used to traditional raft paddles from like the raft industry, this Carlisle paddle might be the way to go. You know what I mean? Just to kind of throw it into your wheelhouse to learn some of these. I don't know. Just the kind of the complexness of R1 rafting, trying to get your boat going where it needs to go. So yeah, this paddle is heavy but smooth. You throw it in, again, it feels like a brick in the water, but it does its thing, and it's just nice and stable. Where this, hell yeah, you get more purchase. But you have to kind of slice it out. You have to, because the R1 rafting, you're constantly paddling and then getting your paddle into a pry position, like real fast. And, you know, so the slicey nature is a little bit harder to get used to. Okay, so we're still on our offside, just kind of practicing. Now today was all about practicing the offside, you know, because you have to, okay, so now here's the strong side. So I kind of go back and forth. So I don't know if you can even tell, but even just body positioning, I'm real stable on this side, you know what I mean? And then here is the offside, you know what I mean? So what I'm working on is just, yeah, being able to just lean onto my hip, balance. I mean, you're basically just balancing on like one hip the entire time, and then paddling and getting some strength out of it. So that just comes with practice. And then this is the stroke that we're really working on today. You know, the offside, leaning, trying to get the boat plane. So here's the offside. We're leaning, trying to get the boat up on the edge. And this will be a good comparison, because this is the Carlisle paddle. I would say, yeah, kind of smooth. I mean, it's less power because you're just dragging a piece of concrete through the water, but it's smoother on the catch and then the pry. And I'm just used to it. So this, yeah, just a lot more dynamic motions with the boat. Which, if you get all that stuff going in the right direction, hell yeah, this is faster. You know what I mean? So now it's just a nature. So it is. It's the sports car of paddles, and I think you see it from that footage. If you're just like, hell yeah, I want it. Everybody wants to go faster, but it definitely comes at a cost of like, hey, you got to get used to that race car, and that's what we're doing today. You know what I mean? And I'd highly recommend. If you're getting into R1 rafting, man, and you got a lake within 5 minutes of your house, holy Toledo, you should be paddling every day on the lake. Now, some people, okay, now this is the strong side just for comparison, because I was just like, well, so I'm still on my strong side, you know what I mean? Like, why can I lean this? See how that lean is just nice, and yeah, that's a perfect amount of lean. I can get deep strokes. So I mean, we have 20 minutes of this stuff, and it's not worth watching. But hell yeah, that's kind of what we're working on. It's like, this is the strong side. I can lean out, paddle. With this Warner paddle, though, it's just a little bit harder to control. I'm not used to dialing in the pry. So that's one of the huge aspects of R1 rafting. You take a stroke, hell yeah, you're getting momentum, but it's throwing you into a direction you don't want to go. So you always have to counter that with a pry. And the faster you get your paddle into that pry, like right here, the smoother your R1 is going to be. And hell yeah. Alright, so this is the right side. This is my off side. It's just a little bit harder, and I really want to practice on leaning and getting power to the boat, because this is how, like at the wave that I surf, to enter on one of the sides, this is how I have to drive in. You know what I mean? To get the most speed, I have to be really leaned out on a tube, basically turning the whole raft into kind of just like one cat tube, for maximum speed. And so the more I lean, the more that happens, and the more power I can get. But the farther that I lean, the harder it is to balance, and the less power in your stroke. So here is my offs. I forget, but this is the offside leaning, and I'm sure I showed a picture on the left side. But hell yeah, like when I'm leaning out on this tube, there's almost no weight on my feet, so my feet are just kind of hovering. And so that is another aspect of R1 rafting to get used to. Like, one, when you get into, hell yeah, you just want to be locked in, feet locked in. And I see that a lot with R1 rafters. They're just locked into one position. That's cool, but that is, to a degree, that's not going to be your most idealized position the entire time. Like, I like to move around a lot now, because, like, if you're going into a big wave sitting on that tube like that, holy, and my boat's so rocker, you know, there's just no chance I'm going to flip over every wave. It'd be really difficult to surgically slice every wave just like that. So I have to, you know, jump to the bow. I got to do a lot of things, but definitely move my body around. All right, so here's the left side. Here's my strong side. And, yeah, just showing the ease. Oh, what this shows is, hell yeah, I can just do really smooth strokes and kind of get that nose of the boat to point in any direction I want. You know what I mean? So now we're slowing it down. So here's the offside, and I'm trying to take strokes that make sense, but also make sure I can get my nose of my boat going any direction. And I can't. I can just kind of go this one direction. And so but now I'm trying. And this is the harder direction to go. Even though you'd think like, oh, well, you're just paddling in the direct, you know, it's like if I take a stroke on the right, my boat's going to turn to the left. But that's not the easy way to go. That's actually the harder way to go. So right now I'm practicing this harder way, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, taking a stroke and getting your... See, this is the easier way, because it's really easy to tuck the nose of your boat towards your paddle. So the next time I do that, so like right here, to start out, yeah, you always want your boat to be, like, if I'm paddling on the left, the boat's angled to the left. Because now I'm like paddling the boat in front of me, and I'm constantly prying the boat left. So then when I take a stroke, it's pushing against all that mass. And it's pushing against the resistance of rotational inertia. But this is where you get good R1 rafting. Go around a lake on a quiet day and just take the slowest strokes. Usually you want to go like deep prise. Like that's when you know, like, hell yeah, I got this kind of figured out. And this is my offside, and it feels like garbage. You know what I mean? But this is a good way to humble yourself, and then help others and realize, like, oh, I've come a long way. Especially if you're, strong on your strong side, but then you go to your offside and kind of develop the same skills. It's very similar to skateboarding. This is like, trying to ollie, go in the other direction. You know what I mean? What do they call it? Switch? Alright, so we're still on our offside, trying to do those slow strokes, and we're trying to turn the boat in the hard direction, you know what I mean? So that direction is the harder direction to go, because the second you paddle just a little bit too much, you're going to lose all your tracking, and when you go for the pry, you're just going to come to a dead stop. So this is the easier direction, angle to the left, making sure my pry. So now we're going to try to bring it around, and it's just really hard to keep that momentum. So it's kind of like a little sweep stroke, or even just a stroke and letting your nose turn to the direction that it wants to turn, and then maintain that pry. And we made a short little video. So what's going on here is, like, hell yeah, your paddle might be in a sweep, but you just have to be. Let me rephrase that. All right, so this is the easier direction. You know what I mean? Keeping the boat in front of you and the nose of the boat towards the paddle, always prying it back. Now this is the harder direction, because what I was going to say is, like, you have to get your paddle into the pry position just instantly, and there's no water building up on that pry. So when you are in that, it's a really difficult pry, and we spend I don't know, at about minute 16 we just kind of work on that pry, and yeah, it doesn't feel good at all. Alright, hell yeah. So now we're, I think we're just trying to work on that. Get the boat. This is the easy direction, now this is the hard direction. And we're trying to paddle in that hard direction, but then make sure we have a nice ruddered pry, a pry that's strong, that's not going to ruin all our momentum. Alright, so this is the easy direction. Once we got some speed, we'll probably work on that harder direction. Nose is going a little bit slightly, even if your nose is going straight ahead, that is the harder way to paddle. You know what I mean? So if people are getting into R1 rafting, like, this is what you should look like. Your nose of the boat is really on your paddle side. Going straight ahead is really difficult because you just get thrown in that direction, and it's really hard to bring back, and you'll lose all your momentum. But it's just a good skill to practice, because if you can hold that, direction, hell yeah, that's a good skill to have. So again, that's going to be the strongest side, and for some of these clips, I'm just like, well, let me put my head down in the water, and just start paddling on the strong side and see what direction I'm actually going. And then, well, that's maybe for a separate video. But that is something to get used to R1 rafting, because, like, you're like, oh, okay, so you're saying if I'm paddling on the left, my boat's angled left, but, like, technically I'm not going left. I'm going straight ahead in that shot. Not a very good one, because we're kind of still working on this, rotating that direction. But that is something you have to get used to. You're like, well, my boat's angled left, I'm paddling on the left, but I'm going at a, you're not going in the direction the nose of your boat's going. So that is just something you've got to get used to. Alright, so now we're really working on that pry on that difficult side. You know what I mean? Like, sweeping the boat in that direction, and then making sure that we can feel that pry. So that's kind of what we're going to be working on. Hell yeah, get a little bit of speed, sweep it around, and then see if I can, get that pry. And like, that was okay, but obviously that didn't look snappy at all. So R1 rafting, especially if you're filming yourself and you're like, if you speed things up, if you're just doing your paddle stroke on a lake in a straight direction, you know, just if you give it everything you've got, you're going to have more speed. You're going to have more water to bite against. If you go for a pry, you can rudder it and also pry against the water, and it's just going to feel real strong. And it's just, and you can swing your back of the boat, you know, really snap it into place. So hell yeah. So this is what we're working on. We're kind of doing these sweep strokes, and then, you know, just going for the pry. That's the hardest thing about this stroke, is like you're taking a sweep, but then you got to get your paddle back around, and mainly why this is really difficult. So this is the easy way to go. So rotate that way, you know what I mean? And it's just, but this way is harder because I think rotational inertia, it feels like you're getting thrown out of the boat. You know what I mean? So this is why this is a really difficult, you know, because, yeah, so I think I summed it up right there. So R1 rafting, you're already out on that tube, you know, just like in no man's land, ready to fall out of the boat. And now you have to do this sweep turn and then hold it with a pry. Well, it just really makes you feel like you're going to fall out of the boat. And that was the motion there. It was just like, holy Toledo, this is crazy. And it's just really hard to get any sort of purchase. And so I'm going to be working on this. You know, that's the other thing about R1 rafting, is like there's so many little skills you can do. You can get real good on a lake. So again, I'm going to emphasize that. Like if, like most people, they might, especially if they're just getting into it. What do you do like 5 R1 rafting trips your first? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, it was just my mindset that it was just like the only way I was going to get good at R1 rafting from the get-go, because it's just so awkward, is just start paddling, like mileage, a lot of flat water. I remember after West Virginia learning how to R1 raft, I got back and it was low water on the Smith River in Montana, and there was just 0 CFS, and it was a 60-mile trip, and I was just like, hell yeah. And so I got dropped off, and I was like, sweet. So 3 days later, my shoulders really hurt, but hell yeah, we just R1 through just no water for 60 miles. But hell yeah, you just stuff like that. I wouldn't do that, but I mean, just definitely, just reiterating, getting out on the lake. You know what I mean? If you don't live near a river, now if you do, you can get really good at boating. Boating is a, you know what I mean? You get jealous at people that live near rivers because you're just like, whoa, I get it. Yeah, it's just like skateboarding. You should be at the skateboard park every day. River sports are the same way, but river sports are cool because you can still get decently good just by going 4 times a year. You know what I mean? It's amazing your improvements. You're like, whoa. Like, you can feel like you're part of the community and part of the sport and literally only go 4 times a year and feel like, damn, I'm still improving every time, and this is a cool sport. Now you just imagine if you go, if you have water on the daily, you know what I mean? And I have this lake on the daily, you know what I mean? So now it's just a matter of like, hey, you know, just getting motivated to be like, hey, I can paddle every day. But I go too hard, you know what I mean? I have to take breaks and stuff, so maybe every other day. But that is something that I probably should get used to. It's just like, well, go a little bit easier, work on your endurance, go every day. Alright, hell yeah. So, I guess we only have like a minute left. And the other aspect, we did a short video of kind of sweeping underneath the rug. So, and basically, you can watch that video. But essentially, R1 rafting comes to whatever your paddle's doing, you still have to finish with a pry. And the stronger your pry, the stronger you can give your next stroke, the more speed, momentum, you know, all this. And it's just pick a direction. It doesn't matter what direction you're going, but you still have to, you know, hold your boat in that direction. You know what I mean? So whatever paddle stroke you're going to take is going to make your boat, you know, turn to a degree. And then so you have to always, you know, be going for that pry. And the stronger your pry is if you get that paddle underneath the boat. Alright, hell, we did pretty good. So thanks for joining me, and hell yeah, that's a video.